Hi friends, today we're going to talk about many uses for the same voicing. This idea is a way to hopefully expand what you already know. You already know certain voicings that are comfortable for you, that work for you for whatever reason, and we're going to take this concept is to take that idea and figure out what are some other applications for the same voicing. So I'm going to take an example today for my own purposes. Here's a voicing that I happen to like for a couple of reasons. We're going to use this example. I like this voicing because it is a quartal-like voicing. There's mostly fourths rather than thirds, so we have an augmented fourth between the notes that I'm playing are C, F sharp, B, and E. So I'm thinking of this initially as a C major with a sharp 11. So as guitar players, we typically have to make room for something. We can't play these big voicings that pianists are so comfortable with. So I'm taking a normal drop to C major 7 chord and moving the fifth down to the sharp 11, sharp 4, and getting this sound. I like this sound for two reasons. One, it's like I said, it's built on mostly quartal harmony, so the C to the F sharp is an augmented fourth, the F sharp to the B is a perfect fourth, the B to the E is a perfect fourth. So it has a modernish sound to me, as opposed to a voicing stacked in thirds. That's one reason I like it. Second reason I like it, it's easy to play, right? It's a simple voicing. So there's two parts to this video about expanding your vocabulary of a voicing that you like. So number one, pick a voicing that you like and then take that voicing and work through its inversions. So for this demonstration and this example that I picked, I'm going to stay on the middle four strings and I'm going to move every voicing up to its next corresponding note in the chord scale, not the chord scale, in the inversion to get all the different versions of that chord. So the C moves to E, the F sharp moves to B, the B moves to C, and the E moves to F sharp, and we get this voicing. So a little awkward to play, maybe, but very cool because it's got that minor second in there between the seventh and the root. So root position, first inversion, next inversion, if I go up again, I get this. So E moves to F sharp, B moves to C, C moves to E, F sharp moves to B, and we get this sound. And then the final inversion, if I keep doing the same thing, the F sharp moves to B, the C moves to E, the E moves to F sharp, and the B moves to C, and we get this sound. You can see that okay. That one's a little... If we go again, we come back to the beginning, just an octave higher, right? So this is the same voicing as this. So here's the inversions of the chord. So those are super useful, right? So we had one voicing, we simply inverted it, and now we have four uses for it, four different voicings for that same thing. Okay, that's all well and good. Hopefully, that's familiar to you and that's somewhat useful. Next is to take the chromatic scale. In other words, I'm thinking of this chord right now as a C something, right? A C with a sharp 11, a major 7 and a third, so it's a C major 7 with a sharp 11 because this C is the root. But what if we hypothetically go through every single note in the chromatic scale as if it were the root and then figure out what are the intervals against that root? So in other words, if C sharp or D flat is the root, but I keep the same exact voicing, then the C natural becomes the major seventh. The F sharp is the fourth. The B natural is the flatted seventh, and the E is the minor third. So that's not super useful, right? So we have, I wrote some of this stuff down, I'll show it to you in a second, but when we have a chord that's got, the perfect fourth, the major seventh, and the flatted seventh, it's not really practical. So throw it away, okay? So if D flat is the root, it's not useful. What about D natural? If D natural is the root, then the C becomes the flatted seventh, the F sharp is the third, the B natural is the 13th, and the E is the 9th. So we have this dominant, again, I'm thinking that D here is the root, but I'm playing this same voicing. It's a dominant chord with all natural tensions. It's very useful. So any place you play a D9 like this, most people would play this kind of a voicing. Well, this could substitute as that because it gives you the 13th and the flat 7th there. So it's a rootless voicing. So taking this idea of moving the bass note up chromatically and figuring out what are the intervals of this voicing against every chromatic note gives you a certain result. And that result is here. I wrote it down, I'll overlay this so you can make a little bit more sense. But basically what I've got is the chromatic scale going down here, right? So here's our voicing, C, F sharp, B, and E. So if the root note is C, then the C is the root, the F sharp is the sharp 11, the B is the 7th, and the E is the 9th, and so on. So I go to every note in the chromatic scale and figure out what are the intervals if we maintain these same 4 notes. And here they are. And then notice that a number of them are struck out, and that's because I don't find those to be particularly useful. So I just simply strike them out. The ones that I do find to be useful, I write over here what type of harmony that is. A major 7 with a sharp 11. In this case, a dominant with natural tensions. In this case, a minor 7 flat 5 voicing. In this case, dominant with altered tensions, very useful. In this case, a minor 6-9. Any place you play a minor 6 chord or 6-9 chord, you can use this idea. And finally, any sus with a flat 9. So these, because of this particular voicing, moving those bass notes chromatically gives us 6 very useful chord types. So what does that mean? You can sit with those a little bit. I think what's really helpful is if you play them in parallel, meaning, if I take the idea of, I'm going to use E as sort of a pedal tone and say, well, we began with a Lydian sound, right? A major 7 with a sharp 11. So if I play the root as E and that play that same voicing, so again, I started with a voicing on C, built in mostly fourths and augmented fourth and perfect fourths, and I move that up to E. Here's my E Lydian sound. Now if I invert this chord, I get these kind of sounds, these same inversions that I was talking about before. Oops, sorry. So those are inversions of that same voicing, that Lydian sound. Now, next one on the grid, and again, I'll overlay this so you can see it a little bit more clearly, is a dominant 7th. So we're taking the same voicing, but I'm going to move the perceived root, which is now E. I'm going to move that down to the flatted 7th, which gives us this dominant sound. Now if I play the exact same voicing, the exact same inversions, that's a dominant with natural tensions, right? It's very Mixolydian-ish sounding. Very useful. Next one is a minor 7 flat 5. So if I go to the flatted 5th degree of E, the flatted 5th of E is a B flat, and I play that same voicing, now I have this minor 7 flat 5 sound. Now, next one was dominant 7th, this time with altered tension. So if I move to the 3rd degree, move this voicing, this is what we started on C. If I move it to the 3rd of E, which is a G sharp, which is here, now I get this sound. Very cool, right? Dominant, altered, dominant sound, all with the same voicings. Next is the minor 6/9. If you move this grip, this voicing, to the flatted 3rd degree of E, which is a G natural, we get this sound, and then its inversions. Finally, I've got sus with the flat 9. So if you move this voicing, which we started on C, move it to the flatted 9th degree in relation to E, which would be an F. So I'm starting on F, and I'm playing that same voicing. This is like a sus flat 9 sort of sound, and all its inversions. So out of a single voicing, what we did was take we took a simple 4-note voicing and inverted it, so that gave us 4 different versions of that voicing. Then we looked at what the different bass notes would be chromatically and found that 6 of the 12 are very useful. 6 of those 12 have chord qualities that are very common and can be used quite a bit. So now we've times our 4th voicings by 6, and now we have 24 voicings of the same chord, essentially 24 different uses for that thing. So what can you do with this? Well, next step would probably be to work on some voice leading. So if you learn those voicings, each one of those qualities, it takes a little to get it in your ear and understand what the intervals are and where they're all at. But the next phase would be to use some voice leading, to pick a tune and to work through it and to voice lead from one chord to the next, to get some real smooth transitions between them. So I'm going to take a tune like Stella and play this idea. Now, I typically, if I was going to actually play the tune, I wouldn't use it on every voicing, but I'm going to attempt to do that. Use this idea of using these qualities: major 7 sharp 11, dominant with natural tensions, minor 7 flat 5, dominant with altered tensions, minor 6th, and the sus with the flat 9, and just apply those using some voice leading principles. So this is what that might sound like. Again, this is Stella. one or two chords per bar. A7 with the altered tensions, dominant with natural tensions, altered tensions, natural tensions on that A flat. Minor sixth, F major 7, A7, A minor 7 flat 5, D7 alter, G augmented with a few inversions, C minor, A flat 7, so natural tensions. So there was a slow walkthrough of the changes to Stella by Starlight using this idea. Hopefully that can give you some idea about first learning the chords, learning the inversions, learning the different applications of the chord qualities, looking at voice leading from one to the next in the context of an actual tune, and you can get lots of uses out of this stuff. So hope that helps, and good luck.